Welcome to Third Side. I'm John Shaw.
I'm Jared McGee.
Today we have a special guest that not only knows the nature of men and women, but he knows about you.
He has dedicated many years of studying the human animal as well as bringing us the world-renowned Old Nick magazine.
We have with us today none other than Magister Dr. Bob Johnson of the Church of Satan and author of the Satanic Warlock. Welcome, Bob.
Hello, gentlemen, and I use that term loosely.
Thank you, as you should. Now we know about
Seriously,
you.
thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor.
We love having you on. We love it. We know about you personally, but there's a lot of reviewers out there that don't know about you. Can you explain to them what makes you the expert that we know you as on this subject?
Well, I don't want to blow a horn, so to speak, and get all in about my bio, but it's been a culmination of many years of studying the human animal, and mostly through the adult world. I've worked for adult magazines and in adult video and production, and also in the straight journalism world. So I have that combination and pulled that all together. Add to that, I have a doctorate in human sexuality, and of course, discovered Satanism when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So you throw all that stuff into the pot, and you have a witch's brew, so to speak. That's pretty cool. And like most warlocks and most Satanists, we kind of gel all of our experiences and have that crystallization of what makes us whom we are.
Right.
So it just all kind of hit magically around the 50th anniversary of the Church of Satan, and I decided, it was time to write the book, The Satanic Warlock. I'm sometimes criticized for having the what you would call it, the audacity to write such a book in the shadow of Anton LaVey and Peter Gilmore, but it was the right thing at the right time, and I felt that I was confident enough to know that I had the chops and had the information that I could impart to warlocks.
Yeah, I really couldn't think of anyone better, to write this book, this much-needed manual on men, so to speak, than you. I mean, seriously, I'm not blowing smoke.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're the one to go to on that. Absolutely.
Well, talking about the book a little bit, I had reams and reams of information, stacks of stuff, DVDs and books and interviews, as you well know, from warlocks and witches within the church and outside of the church.
Yeah.
And I had to really cull it all down to a slim volume. And I did that purposely because the book is a primer. Some people said, well, you could have gone more into this or more into that. But I deliberately made it a primer because for a couple of reasons. One, human beings just tend to absorb information in small bites a lot better and easier. So I wanted that to happen. And today, there's an ADD epidemic with the video game this and phones and every digital damn device you could imagine.
Yeah.
I wanted the book to whet the appetite, give you the basic ideas and instruction, and then we will follow up later on getting in depth and in detail on some of these things.
Yeah. Couldn't think of a better time. I mean, like I said before, this is much needed. Even the Satanic Witch, which was geared toward women, great for men to read, by the way, but even that needs to be updated, I think. It has a lot of elements in it that pertain to the time it was written, but certain things have changed or evolved, I should say, that need addressing. And but as on the men's side, you took the cake on this one. Really good.
Thanks. Well, you're
Totally
right.
agree.
You're absolutely right. Feminism has changed quite a bit since the 60s.
Yeah.
And with that, the influence that feminism has had on men has exacerbated problems, I hate to say, over the last 40, 50 years to a point where within the last 10 years, we've seen a surge of men's rights and pickup artist stuff and, men going their own way movements and all of that. So it almost came to loggerheads. You know, people talk about a political divide now. Well, there's a male-female divide that's happening as well. Not to mention the gender situations that have been thrown out there. You know, I had a friend who went to a party recently, and on the front door of the party it said, "Mind your pronouns." So, you know, where are we going?
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, you know, you don't call someone a he if she wants to be called a she, or, you know, it's a gender. Everyone wants to be gender neutral now. There's everyone. This politically correct insanity where everyone is the same is out of hand.
These problems that you're talking about exacerbating, do you think that they're just growing pains that, you know, a little stretching as we adjust to this new paradigm, or do you feel that this is actually starting a ripple effect that'll be long lasting?
Well, it's the beginning of identities, where people identify themselves only in one way and are intolerant for anything else, and that's not good. So in answer to your question, I hope it's a blip on the radar, and things will kind of straighten themselves out. Now, this is where Satanists come in, and warlocks in particular, because we don't buy into all of it. We never bought into politically correct anything as Satanists, and warlocks especially can't do that now.
Yeah.
And it's also part of our book.
Let me ask you this. I'd like to know your opinion on it. I follow this guy here and there called Ben Shapiro. He's this Jewish kid, but he's
that's right. He's a conservative speaker.
And he put it best. I'm paraphrasing, but it's something about if you're born a man, it doesn't matter what you do in your life. If you want to dress up and act like a woman and things like that, you are a man, and I will call you a he because that's what you are. Right? But at the same time, if I've made a friend out of you and you like to be called a she and you want to pretend to be a girl, then I, as your friend, in my love for you or my care for you, I will pretend with you if I so choose. But a man's a man, a woman's a woman. That's just how it is.
It's biology. I mean, well, yes, of course, the line of biology crosses with people who are, you know, both sexes, you know, hermaphrodites and so on, and transgender people now. But he's right. Biology is biology, and you can't really mess with it too much. And yes, you know, as Satanists, though, we live and let live. That's the idea. Yeah. So if people want to do that, that's fine, but don't jam it down everyone's throat.
And there's certainly a psychological aspect to take into consideration. But at the end of the day, I've got to agree with exactly what you just said. I'm going to just kind of go with the flow. I'm going to say he if you appear to be a he. If you correct me, I'll go with whatever you want, because I don't care. It doesn't impact me. It just doesn't impact me. If you want to be called a he or a she, I'll do it. That's fine. I just don't care.
Exactly. Right. Don't make a big issue out of it, and don't say that if we mistakenly call a he or she who doesn't want to be called a he or she, that we're evil. Well, we're not evil in a bad way.
Not for that. Not for this. We got plenty of other things to be evil about.
Let me ask you this, because in the Satanic Witch, Dr. LaVey was talking about certain known and proven aspects of women, and in the Satanic Warlock, you do the same for men. Now, just because people are out there that are men that want to pretend to be women, they, biologically speaking, like you said, they can never have those certain aspects, or that fire that a woman would have, or that charm that a man would have, because you're not biologically that. Is that correct to assume?
Yes, but you know, it gets into a gray area with hormone replacement therapy and stuff like that, where you know, you're actually changing the physiology, and with that, the chemicals that, like oxytocin and other chemicals that affect the brain. So you know, we are our brains for all intents and purposes. Yeah. So that's a tricky question. You know, it's really more, and you know, I may go off on a tangent a bit now, but it's all part of what I said in the book about the warlock self. Yeah. What you believe you are, you will become. So in that respect, if you are believing you're a woman and you are biologically a man, and you're in tandem feeling like you're a woman but biologically a man, you're closer to a woman, I would guess.
Right. All right. That's awesome. You mentioned adult industry earlier, porn. Let's talk about porn for a little bit, because Jared keeps texting me to mention it for some reason. So
Yeah,
how did you get involved in porn?
Well, I was I mentioned earlier I was I was a journalist by trade, and working on newspapers and magazines and so on and so forth. And I just happened to answer an ad for a men's magazine in New York City way back when. But actually, how I first was introduced was, there's a very famous part of New York City in Times Square called Show World on 42nd Street. Matter of fact, there's an HBO documentary now called The Deuce, which is a drama about how porn started. Porn really started in New York, not in Los Angeles. I was apprenticed on a magazine at 17 years old, on a science fiction magazine, as a matter of fact, called Beyond Reality. It was me and one other guy, and he was the publisher, and quite a story. Anyway, down the hall was another man who published 2 magazines called Gem and Swinger, which were girly magazines in the day, not hardcore, girly magazine. So I migrated, of course, from the sci-fi magazines over to the girly magazines, and I pretty much learned how to do magazines. Fast forward some 20 years, no, not quite, 15 years, and I was tired of the real journalism world. I was getting bored with it, and I decided the goal in my life was to always work for Playboy. Playboy was the quintessential lifestyle when I was growing up as a kid. I think I told this story before, but when I was very, very young, I probably 8 or 9 years old, I had Playboy magazine. Somehow my dads were like everyone else, and they were selling Playboy rabbit cufflinks in the magazine. Now I wanted these cufflinks so badly. It was, I would tell my mother, I want to send away for these cuff. She goes, what are you going to do with cufflinks? You don't even own a shirt. You know, I was a kid. So I said, well, Hugh Hefner only wears pajamas and he has cufflinks. So that started the whole ball rolling.
That's fine.
Anyway, so when I was bored with journalism in the real world, so to speak, I decided I was going to answer this ad for a men's magazine, which was High Society in New York, and got that job. And that was my intro to porn. And then from there, ran those magazines, High Society, Sherry, a bunch of other titles, and Playgirl, which was a woman's magazine. It was really a gay magazine disguised as a women's magazine.
Yeah.
And did all of that for a number of years and had quite a good time.
How would you say that porn has changed over the years?
Well, the internet completely changed it. I mean, it went from a Hollywood type production, creative business into an internet business, and then it became, you know, bastardized content and amateur content, and you know, in the early days of the porn internet world, there were guys making money hand over fist. I personally know a young guy who made so much money from early internet porn that he actually bought an island. He was about 21 years old and he bought an island. That's how much money he was making. So that has changed, and it's broadened its scope to an extent that we couldn't even believe. Like, the internet has done everything else. It has just made it accessible to everyone everywhere. You know, whereas I was as a kid, you know, leafing through Playboy magazine, today young guys, you know, just pop a URL and you get it, whatever.
It's so readily available now. I remember when I was a kid, you would be on a certain channel and like the parents are sleeping, and I'd have to like click it back and forth, and it was like jumbled, and you'd see a boob, and I'm like,
The old scramble.
and that was awesome to me. I'm like, oh my god, I see a boob. It's crazy.
And in a way, that's fine. But I put on my sexologist hat now. In another way, in my opinion, it has desensitized a lot of people. Yeah. Because every kind of porn, every kind of sex act, every kind of body, every kind of kink, fetish, bizarre behavior you could imagine can be found, seen, and overdosed on constantly.
Yeah, even BDSM, it was a naughty taboo, and 50 Shades of Grey. Now everybody's doing it like they know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's what spawned 50 Shades of Grey. I mean, 50 Shades of Grey would have never happened had it not been for the internet and the allowance of accepting that kind of material.
Absolutely.
Into the mainstream. And it's a double-edged sword, because porn has legitimized, the internet has legitimized porn to a great extent, made it less taboo.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it has taken some of the mystery out of sex, and again, I think that, if I could segue into old Nick a little bit,
yeah, definitely.
That's what I kind of wanted old Nick to do, is to harken back to some of that mystery. Not so explicit. I don't have boy-girl stuff in old Nick,
Right.
It's more, enjoying the mysteries and appreciating a woman's body and all of that stuff, which is more in line with what I think, Satanists kind of agree on and have more fun with.
Yeah. Well, speaking of old Nick, how did you, market it back in those days when you first started it?
Well, I don't know if we ever talked about how it started. I just did it on a lark. I created it for the 666 event, June 6, 2006, in Los Angeles, as on a lark. I just said, I want to take the two things I enjoy most, and that's Playboy and Satanism, and kind of put them together. And I did.
It works.
I did this old Nick issue and gave it out, and people started clamoring for it. We want more. We want to see more, and started getting ads. And I said, well, let me do another one. I did another one, and another one, and another one. And 10 years later, we're still doing it.
What kind of obstacles did you have, when you were doing it? Anything?
Well,
what kind of barriers of entry, to even get started?
Barriers of entry.
Besides the financials, which I had to deal with, I had enough connections and sources to make it happen. I guess the biggest, and also the internet helped there too, because instead of having to go out and do giant print runs as magazines did usually, and cost a fortune, I did print on demand. So that helped, and then digitally, I created the digital version. So we have two different versions, and the digital version is a little more hardcore. But those were the two major barriers that were kind of knocked down by technology.
Awesome. Any crazy stories? Any funny or strange stories that have happened during the process of old Nick and things like that? Any funny photo shoots? Any mishaps? Anything crazy that you'd like to share with us about the process and things that might have happened?
What do you mean besides the normal butt plugs being shot out and things like that?
Yeah, that's totally normal. Let's.
That's just Tuesday.
Yeah. It's funny.
Well, there was one shoot we were doing with two girls, and there's a thing in the porn business where, if you're doing a boy-girl shoot and the guy ejaculates and it gets on you, you become baptized. And that was considered, once that happened, then you can shoot anything.
Yeah.
So we were doing a two-girl shoot, and they had a fake kind of Jesus dildo that could actually squirt. And one of the girls had it down by her business down there, and photographer was shooting, and he got a lens full of the stuff shooting out of the the fake Jesus dildo. But it wasn't from the fake Jesus dildo. It was from the girl herself.
Nice.
So consider that a successful shoot.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Kind of wrapped up the whole blasphemy, porn, everything in one.
Yeah,
you know?
perfect.
Do you stop shooting, or do you just have to roll with it?
You never stop shooting. You never stop shooting.
So just
No.
hopefully another camera's got the angle
keep it
because that one's
rolling.
done.
You never stop shooting.
Yeah, so I got a question, like, talking about porn being everywhere and it's such saturating the market and things like that. How do porn companies continue to make any money then?
Well, you have to be very unique. It's all what they call vertical market now. It's niche markets. You have to be very unique and produce content that's for that particular niche, and it has to be above and beyond what everyone else is doing. That's the key, because the tube sites, which are aggregators of free content like PornTube and RedTube and all those, just throw up content, and there's a whole backstory to that where the legalities involved, and producers are now working with the tube sites over the last 10 years, so it's kind of calmed down. But the companies that are successful, if you notice, are very niche companies. Some will concentrate on girl stuff. Some will concentrate on, the alt girl stuff. Some will concentrate on MILF. Some will concentrate on real hard, violent, almost violent stuff. So it's whatever niche is brought out, it has to be done so much better than everybody else. And except for some of the old standby companies like Vivid and Wicked, who still do high-end glamour, big-budget movies. There's still a market for that, and they sell to cable channels and things like that.
Changing directions a little bit, I've always wanted to know at what point, because you were in journalism and then you started getting into porn, at what point did you start proactively focusing on the psychological aspect of a warlock's pursuit for love or lust or anything like that?
Well, I suppose that was always bubbling in the back of my mind. I've always been a student of human behavior, and of course sexuality was a big part of that, and it's a driving force. It's probably is the most important driving force besides survival and eating and and sleeping and then sex. So and particularly with men, we are so sex driven, especially from an early age, that those two things are of paramount importance. Now, where warlocks fit in, we are unique in that respect because we subscribe to this carnal religion we call Satanism. And the cornerstone of Satanism is carnality. So all of that stuff, gelled in my head. And I said, this is where I should take things. That answer your question?
Yes.
Nice. So, the hardcover that you came out with first, that pretty much sold out. Am I correct?
Sold out. Yes, it did.
And now the paperback is out. How are sales happening so far? Pretty good.
Sales are brisk. I just spoke to the publisher,
Nice.
Magister Ruth Waits, this morning. Sales are brisk. It's doing well. I think there's going to be a big demand for it. Now you can get it by going to the Satanic Warlock Facebook page or the Old Nick Facebook page, and the satanicwarlock.com. There's a picture of the book and a link there. So just click any one of those links. You're over there and you can get it. So reasonably priced. Shipping is fast, and
Nice.
it's a good deal. It's a good deal.
So with the website being completed pretty soon here, what do you predict will happen in terms of membership on the site and book sales? Do you think it'll spike more after people see what we've got to offer? And what are you going to offer?
Well, the website's exciting, John. You know, there's this is where the website picks up where the book left off. As I mentioned earlier, the book was the primer, telling you the basics, the ground level information that you would need as a warlock to get started and to understand what this is all about. Purposely done so it's kind of molding the mind of warlocks that this is how you fit. The website then takes that to the next step. So, for example, we talked about seduction. So we talked about in the book the basics of seduction, how people are attracted, why men do what they do, why warlocks have a leg up because of their persona, and the actions, you know, how they differ from the pickup artist community now, and all of that stuff. And we go a step further. We're going a step further with the Warlock book, with the Warlock website rather. For example, instead of just applying simple seduction techniques, we tell you why they work. So, some of them are very simple. Like, what makes a man attractive to a woman? What is the thing? One of the primary things when you're interacting with a woman that's going to make her want to be with you, and it's not looks. Like we all know, they help, but that's not it. I'll give you a little story background to illustrate this. Make believe you're a straight guy, but now you're gay, and you go into a gay bar with all these huge macho leather gay guys.
This place is a mess.
Oh, you've been there. Now you're a regular guy, okay? You're a regular guy, regular bill. You're not a muscle man. You're not a badass. You just walk into the bar with all these big ass leather biker type gay men. What's popping into your head then, or out of your pants? So, however,
am I going to be attacked?
Exactly, John. You're thinking these guys can take me, bend me over, and do whatever they want, however they want, in 5 seconds. This is how women think whenever they walk into a bar. They know men are physically stronger and superior to them in that respect. So what do they want from men? Safety. They want to feel safe. So that's illustrative of what the website will do. It will give warlocks that other information, like, you know, make sure you're making a woman feel safe, because that's very important to her. Safety, your value to her, and that doesn't mean, you know, you're hot looking, you're a sex symbol. What that means is you're accomplished. What do you do really well? Because once again, it all boils down to biology, whether people like it or not. That's what it's about. It's biology, what's in our heads, it's what's in our DNA. This is what causes the attraction. And women are much more sophisticated than men.
Yeah.
You know, we just look, oh, great body, beautiful girl. I don't care what she does. She can, you know, be a garbage woman. I don't care. She's hot. I want her. You know, especially when you're young. But women are a whole.
You'll fuck anything when you're younger.
Pretty much.
Anything. Yeah.
You know, we kind of get like a fine wine after years, but women don't care about that. They're much more selective. You know, men pursue, women choose. So this is just what I'm pointing out, that the website will then give you this extra added value information through blogs, through video. We're doing something called Warlock After Dark, which are videos of things that are happening in the world of Satanism. You know, they could be behind the scenes things of old Nick Schutz. They're one-on-one interviews with hierarchy people. I just finished one portion that I'm calling Warlock After Dark, The Bare Facts, where I talk to a model who's in the nude. And I ask her questions
and
about
thank you for that.
Yeah, and she's answering in the nude. And it's just a fun thing, but
Yeah.
it's getting a woman's perspective while she's sitting there naked. So she's going to be as straightforward as possible without her clothes on. and we'll
When you were researching for the book and throughout all your experiences dating, were you always in the back of your mind just kind of taking notes and observing and testing and researching? And it sounds like to put something like this together, you've been thinking about it for so long. Did you get to go out and experiment with these ideas? And because the only way to really test to make sure they work is to go out and test and see if it works. And then
Well, absolutely. I mean, the beginning of this started, well, way even before the porn days. I mean, when I was a journalist, I'm naturally curious. So I want answers. Whenever I would write stories, I'd want I was trained classically as a journalist to get answers to questions. So whenever I would question something, then I'd pursue the answer. So follow the logic there. When I was more interested in seduction and dating and war and relationships myself and stuff, I would have the questions in my mind. Well, how is this going to work? And well, how are we doing? And then I would seek the answers. So that parlayed over years and years and years. And then when I entered the sex industry, those questions became even more important, because then it's, well, what's the dynamics between seduction and sexuality? And how does that all fit? And how does that work? And why? And why? And why? And why? And so, yes, in answer to your question, it was years of information, both consciously, subconsciously, deliberately sought out. I read many books on the subject, and that also was involved in the pickup artist world. I actually wrote advertising copy for Neil Strauss's company, Style Life. Now, Neil Strauss wrote the book, The Game, which is the preeminent book on the whole pickup phenomena that was in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
And I worked with those guys to write copy for their Style Life websites, which was a pickup artist world. So I got their whole take on things. The idea of dropping the neg on girls, which is basically, when you see a girl, instead of gushing over them like most guys do, we go, oh, you're beautiful, you're hot. Well, you take a different path and say things like, are those really your blue eyes, or are they contact lenses? So in a way, you're making the girl a little self-conscious about herself. And the idea behind that was she will want to prove to you that she's worthy of you. Now, the two schools of thought on that. And I don't think that works with any woman over probably 25. And it's insincere. It is a game that you're playing. So, but those are the kinds of things that created the background of where my philosophies and ideas came from.
How about walking into a bar? Yeah. How about walking into a bar and seeing a girl that's, a little on the hefty side and saying things like, how far along are you? That'll get you laid, right?
Every time.
It'll get you knocked out. That sort of thing.
But speaking of men and women in general, like, what are some of the reasons why you think that, they're stumbling around in the dark, they can't get along or please one another? Why are there so many of these problems in the world? What's the answer there? What's the solution?
Well, if I had that answer,
you'd write a book.
I'd be a Learjet flying around to Barbados. Well, maybe not Barbados. John, that question has so many variables. This is actually one of the bugaboos I have about online stuff now with these online relationship coaches. They give advice, and basically it's like one pat answer advice. Well, a girl dumped you because you're too needy. Well, you can't say that. There are so many variables involved in a relationship. people's baggage and what has gone on, how long they've been together, all of that stuff. So that age-old situation of why relationships don't work or do work is a mystery, and it's a great mystery. It's the dance, why some work for 5 minutes and some work for 50 years. Who knows? It's every relationship is unique. There are some basics that work and don't work, but and I'll tell you that whole thing has been exacerbated tremendously by the digital age.
Yeah. With
texting and Facebook relationships. I mean, it's a whole new game. It's absolutely off the charts. I recently heard a story about a young college kid who, a nurse friend of ours, said he walked in and he had some real problem. They asked him what was wrong. He couldn't sleep. He said he was heartbroken. His girlfriend left him. He couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Well, okay, understood. But when he went over to the doctor came back and was talking and said, the guy never met the girl. This was a total online text relationship. He never physically met her. And she dumped him after a year's time or something. And he was heartbroken to the extent where the poor guy couldn't function. So now the digital world has created another layer of problems in what was already a ridiculously difficult landscape to navigate.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You mentioned
it's swiping now.
Yeah.
Women are pursued always, and they always were the ones to choose because it's the power of the pussy. It's just the way it is. We want it, and they got it. So they can choose, and now they can choose by just swiping left or right.
Yeah.
You didn't, you don't have enough money. Boom, you're gone. And they have their choices have increased 100-fold. Whereas we used to have, groups of people where, there were 1 or 2 people in your group or your social network that you might like, and you go out with them, you date them, you be with them. Now you have the whole world at your as your oyster, so to speak.
Right.
And you can choose whoever you want. And there's a phenomenon now called, of course, there's ghosting, where if you have online relationships, someone can ghost you. Or they could bench you, which means some women have guys in their orbit that are constantly texting them, asking them, being around them, sending them things. But they're just kind of on the bench in case. So the woman
put me in, coach. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Might want to be with you. And then there are the breadcrumbs, where someone will throw you a little breadcrumb every now and then. Oh, how you doing? And then you won't hear from them for weeks. Oh, send me tickets to a show. Maybe we'll go. And so there's all this going on top of it.
It seems like nowadays you don't have to have any game anymore. You don't have to have any chemistry or any lines or anything. It's all about, like you said, swiping left or right. There's nothing to it anymore. It's really strange. What happened to talking to a woman?
Exactly. And how possibly, in this poor kid whose heart was broken in college, how could he have possibly been dumped digitally if she never ever met him? Right?
Yeah. This is actually just really helps out a Satanist, especially a warlock, because if they're just swiping left or right, they're going to put that phone down eventually, and you'll be standing there. And this is a way to really be what we've always naturally been, and now it's going to really shine as different because we aren't digital. We're here. We're in front of you. You're not going to be able to just click a button and I disappear. So it's really an advantage for us that there's so many of these digital things now.
You're right.
It's like when you go to the store, you want to eat. You go to the store and you buy your prepackaged food that they have for you. And you go and you order this online and it gets delivered to your door. And nobody knows how to hunt, how to clean an animal anymore and eat it. It's the same aspect with relationships. This book is keeping alive these techniques and this information that's so vital to us continuing as a race, and
Well, that's exactly right. And as you and as Jared just pointed out, the warlock, by virtue of being a warlock and developing that self-image, that self-actualized warlock person, whomever you identify as your archetype, if there's one that you do identify with, keeps you balanced that way. And that this digital stuff is bullshit, basically, after a while. And as I said in the book, there's, the 3-time rule. After the 3rd time you try with a woman and it doesn't work, that's it. You got to walk away. So try, but comes the point.
Yeah. I think it's turned into the 4-try rule now, I think. I'm not sure. But Bob, can you explain what this means, an exemplary warlock?
Yes, I can.
Funny you should ask. Yeah.
Funny you should ask. A lot of people outside of Satanism, and I don't want to get too convoluted here, but anyone outside of Satanism will think of, first of all, they think of Satanism, that we're all nuts. But besides that, they think we're very rebellious. We're out of the norm. We're not like everybody else. We want to be, and especially warlock men, they want to be tough and mysterious and, evil and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, as pointed out by Dr. LaVey, we're, and Magister Gilmore, we're not rebels for rebellion's sake. Okay, we're not just saying, "Oh, we're anarchists and we're rebels." We're different from everybody else. No, that's not the point. We're rebelling against what we feel is the good guy badge, where you got to put up front like you're this very moral type person when maybe you're not. So we're rebelling like that, and we really are more akin to anti-heroes.
Yep. Always been my favorite.
Yeah. That's what resonates with warlocks. And let me illustrate that a little bit. What a warlock does means a lot more than what he says. Okay? For example, anti-hero, John Gotti, head of a major New York crime family. Okay? It's a thug. Really nothing special. Not particularly smart. Kind of vicious. But what made him stand out and become this major icon, who now they're making another movie about? What made him so special?
Was it his clean, close shave?
Well, that was part of it. He knew who he was. And what he did, and walked around in his $5,000 suits and schmoozed the press whenever he could, and he was out there, and it was his message that transcended who he was. And the message resonated with people. The message was, I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm looked up to, I'm feared. So it was the message because his self made it that way. He was so confident in who he was. It didn't matter what he did. He killed people. He robbed from people. That didn't matter. You could make an analogy with Trump, love him or hate him. His message is what's resonating. Even though people may hate him, with a good portion of the population, his message resonates. Yeah. It's always the message that you're sending. And that's what warlocks should do. They gravitate to their own self, their own archetype. They practice it, they live it, they are it. That message that they're exemplary warlocks then gets through to people, and that's what they see, and that's what they like, and that's what makes them who they are. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Definitely.
So the moral of the story is John Gotti is an exemplary warlock.
He could have been. If we're still alive.
All right. So let's talk about, there's something out right now. People need to nominate people on the Warlock of the Year. Whoever came up with that idea is a genius.
I thought so.
Yeah, this is this is something that the Satanic Warlock brand is behind. It's going. I think it culminates October 1st. So, got to poke around and find out where you could vote for your favorite Warlock, and it's a voting thing. It'll be. I'm not involved in the selection process, but I probably will be involved in the announcement somehow. And we will give a free 1-year membership on the Satanic Warlock website to the winner.
Nice.
So it's kind of a nice little thing.
Cool. All right, before we go, I don't know if we've talked enough on the power of seduction. I mean, what are some tips that, before you go in closing, that you can give men and women, if you have any, that they can take with them from this show?
Well, in pure seduction, technique, are you asking?
Whatever what would you like to just bestow on people before we leave?
The most important thing for a man, and I'll give you another little example. The most appealing thing a woman will find about a man is his self-confidence. Now, that's an overused term, and it's hard to define what real confidence is, but I will tell you my take on what confidence is, and that's simply doing whatever you do the best you possibly can, okay? For example, and how do you get it? Well, this is another illustration. You're driving a car, you're young, you've got your license for the first time, you're driving around the neighborhood and it's beautiful weather. All of a sudden there's this ridiculously bad storm, okay, hurricane. You've never driven in the rain, but you have to. You get in the car, you drive, you get to where you want to go, and you come back home. And you say, okay, I did that. Next time it rains, you're out again. Drive, oh shit, it's raining. You're back home. By the 5th, 10th time, it's only rain. You've gained confidence. Confidence is nothing more than repetition and mastering whatever you do. Now you translate that to seduction, which is palpable amongst people and palpable to women. Adam Cardone, magician. Yeah. Okay, I've seen this work. He's at a group. We were at an art gallery. Lots of people around. Everybody milling around, mixed up men and women. Cardone takes out his card tricks. The women flock to him. Okay, boom. He's doing his tricks. They're woo ha woo ha. He's done with his tricks. The women still were around him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, beside the fact he's a good-looking kid and he's a nice guy as can be, he was accomplished in what he did. And what that translates to woman's mind is, this guy's got something going on. He could protect. He could provide. He can make things happen. That's what I like. So whatever you can do it really well. Practice it. Even if it's a one-trick pony, just be really good at what you do. That becomes palpable. That becomes part of your warlock self. That's what will be your key to seduction. One of the primary things. Now,
so these guys out there that are nervous and timid, you just got to take the plunge. You got to do it. Approach the woman. Approach the stranger. And it's going to be rough. It'll be awkward, but and the philosophy of just doing it, that totally resonates with a warlock naturally.
Exactly. And when you're that nervous, or you feel like you're going to be shot down, which will happen 9 out of 10 times. I mean, it's happened to everybody. I can't tell you how many times I've been shot down, dumped, thrown aside, but you get up and you do it again. Because that will, in turn, build your confidence. And then you say, what's the worst that could possibly happen?
Mm-hmm.
I always go back to, especially with beautiful women, and, I get called on this all the time, but it's a truism that's true. You see a gorgeous woman and, I can't talk to her. Guess what, buddy? Somebody's sick of fucking her.
I got to tell you a little story. Years ago, before I met Marlene, I swear. It's no, seriously. I had a buddy that we'd go out all the time to club, and he would be laid every time we go out. And here's his thing: he was just blunt, and he took the plunge, like you guys say. He would go up to women, and he would be like, "Hey, let's get out here and fuck," and he would be smacked in the face probably 4 or 5 times that night. But one of them's gonna say yes, and he gets laid every time.
That's right. That's right.
Here's to you, buddy.
It's the law of averages, and you know, and that harkens to the idea of brokenheartedness. You know, when guys get brokenhearted,
Yeah.
It hurts. It's terrible, but you move on, and you pick yourself up. You move on. You go with the old platitudes. They're all true. It takes time. You heal, and there's another bus coming along in 15 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah. There is no one person for anyone. As much as we love our wives and girlfriends, there is no one person. There are men.
Hold on, can you repeat that? Mark, come here. No,
I didn't say that.
She went hiking. Darn it.
But, so that's something else that needs to be cast in stone. It's just not a person.
Bob, we can't thank you enough for coming on. I mean, it was a great episode. I think we got a lot of good information out there, and you're awesome.
My pleasure, gentlemen. As always, you both are exemplary warlocks. I mean, you're proving what I just said. You're accomplished in what you do on many levels. You're making this happen. You're way ahead of a lot of other people who do nothing, unfortunately. So warlocks, take heed. You have to do, practice, continue, and you become exemplary. That therein lies the magic.
Raise that bar.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, till next time, everyone.